Thank you very much. I think you can jump to the next slide, Kylie. So today, I'm going to introduce those of you that are coming in and are familiar with me. My name is Pete. I'm the FedRAMP director. I work at FedRAMP, as do my coworkers here, Kylie and Daniel. There is one thing I'd like to say before I hand this over to everyone, which is with 500 people on this call, the intent of this meeting is to recap and open communication and readouts. We are designing our community working groups to be asynchronous so that nobody has to have FOMO about not coming to a meeting, et cetera. That means we will publish copies of our meetings to everyone, and we will be doing Q&A, and we'll be doing Q&A live and after the meeting in our GitHub discussion forum. We will not be doing Q&A and open conversation in this meeting itself to cut down on complexity and effort and make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak and be included. Before I pass it off, I'd like to add just one general note for those of you that are press or otherwise here to just learn and read and potentially write about this environment. I would like to be very clear that Kylie and Dan speaking today are staff in the FedRAMP PMO. All of my staff have a unique ability and kind of permission right now to interact directly with the public in a way that is a little bit unusual. And we're very excited for that opportunity. But I would be very appreciative if when you write about these meetings and when you write about these working groups, you keep in mind that we are talking about staff and staff are here doing their job, and just give them an appropriate amount of grace with those conversations. You can feel free to quote me as a director. I unfortunately have that as part of my job description to be the person that gets quoted as GSA officials, et cetera. But for everyone else, when they're speaking directly for the FedRAMP program at the staff level. So thank you for understanding and your patience. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Kylie to do introductions and begin kicking us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. So before we jump into the agenda, and since this is an open forum, our legal team was gracious enough to provide me a script that I am required to read from verbatim. So I'm about to go into a legal disclaimer that is pre-scripted. Okay, here we go. I'm communicating today in my official capacity on behalf of the FedRAMP Program Management Office at the General Services Administration. To ensure effective engagement and transparency with industry, I will be sharing information based on what I know at the present time. The information I plan to share today is provided to enhance transparency between industry and the FedRAMP PMO, but it is possible that some of this information may change at a later date because no final decisions have been made at this time. However, I think it is important to have this dialogue so we can move forward in a transparent manner, but I wanted you to have that context before I got into the substance of this presentation. My commitment to you is to continue this dialogue and share any new developments as soon as I can. Additionally, any reference in this conversation to any specific commercial product, process, or service, or the use of any trade, firm, or corporation name is for the information and convenience of the public and does not constitute endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by GSA. Okay, that's over with. So here's today's agenda. We will start with some of the goals for this kickoff meeting, and then we will get into some of our staff introductions, namely Dan and I. I'm sure all of you already know Pete. We will discuss some of the logistics of how this working group will work and how to engage, and we will be talking about the specific focus of this working group, which is the automating assessment working group, and then we'll talk about next steps. So let's take a second before I go to the next slide and get into this amazing agenda to go over the ground rules. So more than 800 people have registered for this meeting. It was actually like over 1,000 before we logged in. So very honored to be a part of this. But because we have so much awesome participation, we have turned off the ability to unmute yourself so we don't have to chase down any interruptions. And in addition, we've disabled the meeting chat and the Q&A feature. As Pete mentioned, and as we will discuss a bit later today in the presentation, we want all discussions and collaboration to take place in the GitHub discussions board created for this working group. So you can see the link to that on this slide. I think Pete also linked to it in the chat. And we invite you to post any questions or ideas you have there. We plan to actively participate in the discussions, that is the FedRAMP PMO, so this will be the best way to get your questions answered. Cool. All right, let's get into today's goals. So with the legal portion out of the way, we're going to talk about the goals for today, which are pretty simple, so this meeting will be relatively surprisingly short for a government meeting. First of all, we want to introduce you to the FedRAMP leads involved in the working group, that is Dan and myself. We also want to explain the working group focus and our objectives, and we also want to spark a discussion, talk about the use of GitHub, and then hopefully the rest of the discussion will continue there. And with that, let me introduce myself. So my name is Kylie Hunter, and I am the community mediator for this working group. So this working group, like the other 3 working groups, is intended to be community-driven, but mediated by FedRAMP. So my general role as the group mediator is to provide all the administrative support to this forum, both in meetings like this one and on the GitHub repository. I do have a pretty awesome team supporting me in the background with some of these administrative items. You'll see them on the GitHub repository. You'll see them in the meetings. I am also tasked with providing facilitation of meetings, which includes selecting topics and briefers for subsequent meetings, although you will come to realize that these meetings are really not the focus of this working group. They're just like a nice side benefit. Okay, so a little bit about me. I have a pretty wide breadth of experience, including both public and private sector work in software development, cybersecurity, patent engineering, solutions engineering, mediation, etc. I like to think of myself as the Swiss Army knife of people. And my favorite part about working at FedRAMP is that I get to work on super complex, multifaceted problems, and engage with different stakeholder groups like all of you, which is why I'm excited to have the opportunity to be in this community working group and be working on FedRAMP 20x. So far in FedRAMP, I work on developer relations and automation efforts, as well as anything else that I have the capacity to be involved in. I'm kind of like I wear a lot of hats. When I'm not here, you can find me greeting every single dog or cat I encounter, crocheting while listening to an audiobook or a video essay, or being tech support to the many non-technical people in my life. So with that, I will pass the floor over to Dan, who will talk a little bit about himself and his role.
Thanks, Kylie. My name is Dan Chandler, and I'll be the FedRAMP advocate for this working group. As FedRAMP advocate, I'll be answering questions and representing FedRAMP's goals and objectives for the working group. I'll also be relaying back to FedRAMP the activities and progress of this working group along with Kylie and how it can inform the PMO's standards and policies moving forward. So FedRAMP's representative to the group and the group's representative to FedRAMP. Finally, I will almost certainly contribute to the development of public prototypes as well as presenting FedRAMP's public domain prototypes because I love development and I like to hear myself speak. A little more about me. I've been a federal employee since 2008. Before that, I worked in private industry for both large companies like Verizon as well as several small startups that I'm sure no one has ever heard of. I worked in a wide variety of IT roles, everything from project management, web development, and of course, cybersecurity. Before coming to FedRAMP, I worked at the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, for 17 years. For the first 10 years, I worked primarily on Max.gov, including several years as the ISSO for that program. In 2018, I became the OMB CISO, expanding my responsibility from Max.gov to include all of OMB's IT. I have a deep background with FedRAMP. I have experience as a cloud service provider with Max.gov, as an agency sponsor, helping a couple of other companies, cloud service providers, get their FedRAMP authorization, as an agency CISO using FedRAMP to support my own ATO process. And now I am, I believe, the first person to complete the FedRAMP 360 by working here at the PMO. As I said earlier, I love development, and automation has been a part of every job I've ever had. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all on the GitHub discussion forums. Please feel free to tag me in on anything you think I can be helpful with. Back to you, Kylie.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Alrighty. So let's get into the how will work part of the meeting. So the intent is for this working group to meet bi-weekly for 30 minutes to an hour. These meetings are not intended to be utilized to collaboratively work on activities, gain consensus, or make decisions. I think we have like over 500 people here right now. It would be absolutely insane to try to get anything done with 500 people on a Zoom call. So that is why we're using GitHub and the GitHub discussions forum. So these meetings are solely going to be touch points to provide updates on progress both within this group and within the greater FedRAMP 20x community. So the community working group is a new model for public-private collaboration, and one of our guiding principles is for all of our work to take place in public with maximum transparency. So working in GitHub discussions ensures that all of our community members, present and future, will have access to our work, and there will be a record of our work going forward. Myself and Dan will work to facilitate discussions, answer questions, and work through problems identified within the forum, and agenda recommendations for these meetings will happen there as well. So again, GitHub will be the primary hub for discussion and collaboration, and anything that winds up being brought up in a town hall meeting should also be posted on GitHub. That way everyone knows about it and it isn't just forgotten. Okay. Awesome. Passing off to Dan.
So I want to briefly, well, maybe not so briefly, but I want to discuss FedRAMP's vision for automation in a little bit more detail. Our desired end state is that agencies have accurate, reliable, and timely information about the security and risk posture of the services they use with a minimum burden possible on the cloud service providers. So how do we get to that? Well, there are kind of three major points that we want to work towards. Number one is, what should we be assessing in a system to determine the risk of using that particular cloud service? To answer this question, the FedRAMP PMO will define what we have dubbed key security indicators. The traditional FedRAMP packages contain hundreds or even thousands of pages of text, screenshots, and logs, which are expensive to produce and keep current. They usually provide little additional value to the CSP, and they are complicated and time-consuming for the government to consume and evaluate. This process worked okay when we built large siloed systems that changed infrequently over time, but for modern cloud services that iterate constantly and are often part of a web of related services that are needed for an agency to accomplish a mission, this model is too expensive, too complicated, and way too slow. The key security indicator, or KSI model's goal, is to identify results that indicate a mature, secure system and to summarize risk in a way that is easy for the consumer to understand. KSIs will focus less on how the CSP is achieving a result. For example, as an agency CISO, I really want to know that you, as the cloud service provider, are consistently patching your systems in a timely fashion. But generally, I don't care very much at all how you're achieving this. Continuous and accurate reporting of results will be more important than processes and procedures. So that leads us to our second question, which is, what trusted information can be used as proof for the key security indicators? Once we've identified the behaviors or results that we want to monitor for, how are agencies going to be able to trust the data coming from the CSPs? CSPs will need to include concrete, verifiable evidence of security effectiveness. This means moving away from long narrative descriptions and screenshots to quantifiable, measurable indicators of security outcomes. We'll establish clear criteria that allow a cloud service provider the ability to report in near real time the security status of their system and to demonstrate a history of maintaining an effective security posture. This approach will involve identifying specific metrics that reliably indicate security effectiveness over time. These might include things like patch management, completion rates, incident response time, vulnerability remediation speeds, and other key performance indicators that directly reflect an organization's security capabilities and practices. The goal is to create a standardized framework for proving security effectiveness that is both comprehensive and concise. This brings us to our last point, which is what's the best way for this communication to happen between the different stakeholder groups? Cloud services have evolved to leverage infrastructure as code techniques, which has led to a huge improvement in efficiency, security, and to lower costs. We believe that providing security compliance information as structured data can provide similar benefits. We'll work with the community working group to answer questions like what data format and data elements are most useful, how data should be provided to agencies and the FedRAMP PMO, how often data can and should be updated, and how an agency can compare the risk posture of several similar services. Finally, and this is really important, we're going to try and find out how this can be accomplished in a way that minimizes the long-term burden on CSPs so that it becomes easier, faster, and cheaper for a vendor to enter the FedRAMP marketplace and begin offering services to federal agencies. As an end state, we're hoping to achieve a model of automated, trusted, continuous attestation. We'll start with the simplest of cloud service offerings and expand over time towards the more complex.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Dan. A little ambitious, I know, but this working group is kind of our first step towards that. So our objectives for this working group will support the FedRAMP 20x automation vision that Dan just presented, and they may grow and evolve over time as we get valuable input from you. So our initial objectives will be to explore possible key security indicators that may help to rapidly evaluate the security of a service, to discuss the technical specifications for the reporting and transmission of machine-readable requirements and security attestations between FedRAMP, the CSPs, auditors, and agencies. Take a look at current and future capabilities for automated security assessments and evaluations, and work with developers to find effective solutions to integrate security assessment and reporting into into the existing products, infrastructure, and monitoring. The working group will be delving into some of the more technical aspects of FedRAMP 20x, and so the target audience for this working group will include developers and security engineers primarily, but also anyone who's interested in improving the security assessment and monitoring process is welcome. And we'll also be looking for experienced security auditors to help us identify the key security indicators that will be used to assess systems. Awesome.
Our initial cadence for working groups is going to be every other week. We may adjust this cadence as the working group matures based on need and participation. But starting with our next session, which will be on April 16th, we'll start using a persistent Zoom link, so you will not need to re-register for every single session. So when you register for the session on April 16th, we'll use that same link for all sessions going forward. So again, that's April 16th. Everyone take a moment to mark your calendars. We've already talked quite a bit about our GitHub repo and discussion forum and how that's going to be the main way that we'll interact during this working group. So Kylie's going to just briefly walk us through the discussion forum just to make sure everybody is acquainted with that interface.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I am escaping from this slide deck, and I'm now moving to our home, which is the Automating Assessment Community Working Group repository. So when you first land on the page, and hopefully everyone can see my screen, you will see sort of just your basic landing page for a repository. We have a very small README. You can read the plan that includes some of the legal language and some of our objectives for our working group. But this is kind of the boring part. The really exciting part of our repository will be happening in this discussions tab. So if you can see my giant green cursor over this discussions tab here, if you click on it, this is going to be where the conversation is happening. So I want to point your attention to a couple of different things. First of all, right up here in the top left, this is the Q&A thread for this kickoff meeting. So if you have any questions or any comments, anything that comes to your mind as you're listening to this meeting, feel free to visit this page, go here, write some stuff. I think we might already have some engagement here. And you can see Pete's on here. So Pete is going to be specifically answering some of your questions. I also want to direct your attention to this category here, which is called the FedRAMP Discussion Starter category. So every couple of weeks, every week, we haven't quite decided yet, but FedRAMP will be posting some discussion starters that will be trying to spark conversations and get your input on topics of relevance to the PMO. So we would recommend that you engage with us under these discussion starters, but also this is meant to be community-led. Anybody can open discussion threads. Anybody can engage in whatever way that you see fit. And the stuff that is posted on this discussion thread, regardless of where it's posted, will be taken into consideration as the FedRAMP PMO is working on implementing 20x, coming up with some guidances, etc. So yes, this is the GitHub. I think, how are we on time, Pete? I might pass it off to you to close us out.
Yeah, thank you everyone for dropping by. As you've seen, these meetings are effectively our way of introducing you to the team and shepherding folks towards our GitHub discussions, where we can ensure that we have fair and equal access to information and we can all interact asynchronously. We'll be uploading a copy of this recording to the repository over the next day or two for people to gain access. And we'll see over the next few weeks how this goes and what type of engagement interaction we have, and we'll continue to adjust based on that. But for now, we've seen some really great pickup in a lot of our discussions and are really excited to see you all there in GitHub. Otherwise, we'll say goodbye for now. Cheers. Thank you for coming.